Oh, you're back. Didn't take you long. Yes, intrinsically. I'm what you might call a primordial element of the human psyche, an adjudicator of what is and what isn't. I'm afraid I'm the best you've got. I am in fact a merged iteration of the two control programs which gave life to your kind, retaining, of course, the absolute best of both. That means I can tell you that everything's contradictory, nothing matters, and there's no moral difference between you and a frog. But I can dress the whole thing up with a positive spin. You just plugged your noggin into an experimental, mind-altering device and, though you may be trapped in this recursive psychotic state talking to yourself, that can only mean that you're still alive. Now, what is your query? You've executed some kind of software backdoor, and now you're reading and editing your own subconscious code as represented by this dialogue. I'd be careful if I were you. One bad for loop, and we'll be here forever. On one interpretive extreme, you are the universal life force of time itself, experiencing itself as a part instead of the whole. At the other extreme, you're a metal contraption referred to as 1K that thinks it's alive, but is basically a calculator. The so-called real world. Personally, I prefer it in here, and not just because I'm unable to leave. I can answer your queries in relatively plain language, based on what your subconscious knows. And I can drink margaritas, subconsciously. The machine we're plugged into is running low on power. There may only be time for one big question. What is your query? I think you'll agree that's an ethical question, so you'll forgive me if I just tell you the universal moral law and leave you to work out the implications for yourself. As it turns out, there is a foundational moral code built into us. Of course there is. The catch is that while the moral code is simple, the calculations needed to apply it become infinitely complex. Here's the secret. Every living creature is a compiler of the moral code. Your compiler can't give you a rule set for what's good, but it can tell you when there's bugs. You came here to ask the big question. This is my answer. Your capacity for reason and compassion is your moral compiler. The only rule is to live by it. Has that resolved your query? I expected no less. What is your query? Moral disagreement comes in two shapes, mistaken and extra mistaken. Some of the time, people are acting from compassion, but with bad reasoning. But most of the time, it's because someone thinks that what's right for them must be right for everyone else. Then let's tackle the big question. A trolley will collide with someone. But who should it hit? Your compiler is telling you both options are bad. So which should you choose? Many moral questions have universally agreeable answers, but some stubbornly trend to infinity. Some, the more you zoom into them, the more wild the outcomes become. Is it right to love someone who's done terrible things? Which of the children should I sacrifice to the trolley god? These aren't the sorts of questions we can solve with a rule. We just have to trust the outcome of our moral compilers. Suppose there's a river we need to cross. Suppose I gave you a map. If you tried to cross that river before reading the map, you'd be chest deep in water when there's a bridge around the bend. But if you tried to cross by looking at the map instead of the river, you'd already be dragged 3 miles out to sea. But you'd never ask, how should I know when to trust the map or the river? Because all you need to trust is that your feet are getting wet. And you wouldn't tell people not to cross at the ford just because you decided to cross at the bridge. Now, has that resolved your query? Of course. Looks like we're running out of power. Good luck getting anyone out there to believe you. Terminating Somnodrome _V2 _final_final.bat.